So my name is Pam Birrell, and I am a retired psychologist and plant-based eater, and currently right now a raw vegan. And I'll tell my history a little bit since Scott and Charlie did. I'm an accidental vegan. I did not mean to become a vegan, although most of my life I had wanted to be vegetarian, and I knew there was something wrong with eating animals, but so I would tend toward vegetarian, and for a while this was way before the paleo diets came out. I decided that the way that cavemen ate was that they mostly ate nuts and berries, but occasionally they killed a mammoth. And so what my husband and I would do is we'd eat vegetarian or close to vegan until we wanted meat, and then we'd go get prime rib. And what we noticed is those periods between prime rib got longer and longer. We didn't need it. But then I had a friend named Sarah who wanted to go on a raw diet. And I thought that was the craziest thing I had ever heard of. And this was 15, 16 years ago. But she wanted to do it, so I said, okay, I'll try a raw diet, not knowing at all what I was getting into. I woke up one January 1st and stuck spinach and an orange in my blender. And so for a total year, I was totally raw vegan. And I was raw. And at the end of the year, I realized I was vegan. That was kind of the stupid part of it. And so at the end, and I thought, great, I've always kind of wanted to be vegan. And it just went on from there. And sometimes I'm not raw. But especially during the summers, I like to be just a totally raw vegan. And I did exactly what Charlie and Scott said, is I lost, 40 or 50 pounds. I wasn't paying attention. I've never been very good at following my cholesterol numbers, but they're totally fine now. I don't know what they were beforehand. And just supremely healthy. I'm almost 79, and I am taking a yoga teacher training. I walk a bunch every day, and I love to ride my bike and play my flute. And this is going to be partially an advertisement for you, Misty, because I volunteer at a farm sanctuary. A couple of years ago, I decided to, since I was retired, you want to volunteer a little bit, and so I contacted Misty, and I went down, and this is one of the first pictures of me with Buster, and so I started volunteering there, and it's also changed my life. So maybe I can do it. Yeah, so next one. So we're part of lifestyle medicine, and lifestyle medicines, there are 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, and I kind of tease Charlie and Scott that they leave the psychologist to do half of them, where they only do one of them. And so I'm going to be covering these principles of how to be healthy. But the next slide, this is how I really see it. I really see the vegan diet, the whole food plant-based diet, as really the source of health. And not only physical health, like Charlie and Scott were really good at talking about the numbers, but also our mental health. If we're too stressed, if we're not sleeping well, if we're not getting good connection, and it's not just social connection, and I really want to emphasize that, then we're not going to be healthy. But it's hard to change all of those other top 3 things without having a good diet. You can do certain kinds of things to do, but it basically starts with the gut. And I'll also say the heart. So the next one. I always wonder what I'm going to say next. Okay, all right. One of the important things about any kind of mental health is being mindful. If we can stop just a few moments and breathe. This is a picture of me with Milo. It's one of my favorite pictures, of just to sit and be. This alone can start to reduce our stress. And if you want to be calmer, take a deep breath and make your exhale longer than your inhale. And you can do this as simply as inhale to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale to 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what that does is it actually slows your heart rate down. And so just taking a moment to be mindful about anything, about your breath, about what you're thinking, and I'm going to get to the power of thought in a little bit, about what you're doing, about how you're feeling, about the people around you, your environment, the bottom of your feet and the palms of your hands. That in itself can be healing. And then, of course, if you're falling asleep during a boring psychology lecture, you can try the opposite breath. So the next one. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time on physiology that I've spent in the past with some of these talks, is that there is a gut-brain axis. And, what Scott was saying earlier is that you try to get somebody to change their diet, and they say, well, that doesn't have anything to do with anything. But we have a direct axis here. And I'm going to spend time on, particularly on the cranial nerve, but there's all different ways that we are connected from the gut, and especially the lower gut, up to the brain, up to the head, and up to our hearts. And as you can see, that the gut down here influences neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are often what tell us to be stressed or anxious, affects our mood, and it affects our behavior. Okay, next one. I'm sorry, my inner psychology professor sometimes gets out of control, and she had to put a slide up here that showed that I was smart. Okay, so there are 3 parts to our nervous system. There's the sympathetic, parasympathetic, and the enteric nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is the one that says, if a tiger walks in this room, we're going to run. That's fight or flight. The parasympathetic nervous system will calm us down, and we can relax, rest and digest, or tend and befriend. And then this enteric nervous system is these neurons that come through the gastrointestinal tract and all the way up, and it's been nicknamed the second brain. We have as many neurons in our gut as we do in our brain. So it's a very, very important part of our nervous system. It's not something that somebody just made up. And then I'm going to talk about the vagus nerve. And would you go to the next one? Yeah. So this is the vagus nerve. It comes from your brain. Most of the cranial nerves are all in our head, but this big one comes from our heads down to our brainstem, and you can see it has endings in the lungs, the bronchia, the heart, the liver, the spleen, the stomach, the kidney, the gallbladder, the pancreas, the large intestine, and the small intestine. So I've heard people describe this as the internet of the body. And if one were to make a Disney film out of this, here's what I think it would look like. You know that Inside Out one? Okay. But this one now, we got people in our brain, and we got people in our gut. And so the people in the brain are like, oh, I'm feeling a little stressed. Let me check with the gut. And let's say you've just eaten 4 hot dogs. And so the brain says, how's it going down there? And your lower nervous system says, things aren't very good down here. And so back up the brain says, well, maybe I better look around for trouble. Right? And, or vice versa, if the brain is feeling a little stressed or a little anxious, checks with the gut, and you've just had a wonderful raw vegan smoothie, your gut says, it's okay down here. And then the brain can say, oh, I guess I can relax a little bit. Because it's a two-way system. It's efferent, it's afferent. They're constantly communicating with each other, or perhaps the better way to say it is that they are one. They're not different. Okay, so stress. So I can't control my inner psychology professor, sorry. So not every form of stress is detrimental, and I want to spend some time here talking about managing stress apart from diet. This is the next one. So there's something called distress, and there's something called eustress. And distress is this negative kind of stress. Physical, too much. Maybe you had an automobile accident. Maybe your job stress is too much. Maybe someone who's close to you is dying. I mean, stress is real. I'm not saying stress is not real. And it's something that definitely impacts our nervous system and our lives. But there's another kind of stress, which is called eustress. We need some stress in our lives. And the best example of this is a violin string. If a violin string is strung too tight, one thing it'll do is break. Before it breaks, it makes a horrible, screechy, awful sound. And if it's too loose, it won't play music at all. So you have to find that place right in the middle between distress and eustress. So it's not a matter of we're going to get rid of our stress, but we're going to begin to find that middle place. So we know distress can cause all kinds of mental health problems, anxiety, depression, headaches, fatigue. And what it does, it inflames the nervous system and the enteric nervous system, and contributes to things like irritable bowel disease. So remember this two-way street that we have going. If we're eating a bad diet, we're stressing this. And so then stress adds to that. So you can see how these two really work together. And so if I can uninflame our nervous system with good food and whole food, plant-based food, then that will help reduce our stress by itself right there. But the eustress actually involves our parasympathetic nervous system, so that's the calming one. And it actually can improve performance, mood, and productivity. It also engages what's called the ventral vagus nerve, which is one of social connection. So giving talks like this is stressful to me. I have to prepare, I have to think. I'm retired. I should be out there, I don't know, doing it, playing with Buster, right? But it really helps me because I come to this center place where I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm still growing, I'm still involved with life. And yeah, it's kind of stressful, but it's not a stress I would ever give up. I need to be that violin string right in the middle. So next one. So we spent some time on the gut and how that's really going to affect our nervous system. But our minds have a lot of control here. And I'm not going to, I guess I have time. So some cases, as I said before, stress, you're being abused, you're being beat up, you're being raped, you're in an automobile accident. I'm not talking about that kind of stress. When you get that kind of stress, please call for help. And that's something to deal with. But in many cases, how we think about an event can determine if it's good or bad stress. Okay, and I want to give you some interesting examples of studies that have been done. And the first one had to do with, actually I wrote housemaids. It's actually hotel maids. So that's a hard job, being a hotel maid. And these are scientific studies. I have to talk about them. Hotel maids work hard, right? And so they were brought into the laboratory, and they were monitored things like blood pressure and what's their health like, and what's their weight, and all of this stuff. And they asked them questions about, do you enjoy your life? How much exercise do you get? All of this stuff. And the maids said that they were pretty stressed. They didn't get much exercise, and they were just having a hard time with their life. And so, okay, we've got a baseline level. So they come back, and half the maids are told, did you know that your work, the work that you do every day, is really, really good exercise? And they were told all of this stuff. That's all. That's the only intervention. They were told how good their work that they were already doing was good exercise. That's all they told them. And they come back in a month or so, and the maids who had been told that their work was good exercise had lower blood pressure and had lost weight. That's all that happened. It's like we begin to think of our life differently. When I'm working at the farm every week, I tell people, some people go to gyms and pay for this kind of exercise, right? And so if we can think about our work and our stress in a different way, it actually has a physical effect on our body. The other one has to do with milkshakes. Here's another fun study. People are brought into a laboratory and told, we are going to give you a really, really rich milkshake. The highest fat, the best one that you can ever get. And then afterward, you're going to rate how hungry you are. And that's all. That's a study. So then they come back the next week, and they're given a super slim shake that's very healthy. That's what they're told, right? And then they're asked afterwards, how hungry are you? And what they found is that when people were given the full fat, the really rich, wonderful milkshake, they were full. And then when they were given the super skinny milkshake, same amount, they weren't full. The trick being that both of those milkshakes were the same milkshake. Okay, so here you have your mind actually telling you how hungry you are, that's sort of irrespective of the food, right? So, and I think this two-way communication thing is one that's really, really interesting. And then we have the third one, which is, of course, the power of the placebo. And this is the problem with all kinds of studies where you're trying to measure, like, the effect of an antidepressant. In fact, the most recent research shows that placebos are as effective as antidepressants. They are as effective. And there was a wonderful study with IBS patients. They're having terrible IBS symptoms. They gave them a pill, and they told them it was a placebo. And in many of the cases, it still worked. So think of what this might mean in your life, right? Maybe how I think about things really can change things. You're doing a wonderful job, by the way. So there's ways that we can, once we have, I think it's important to start with good health, is we can transform our stress into a challenge. So I can think of this stress as something, or this talk as something I'd rather not be doing. That I'd rather be sitting at home sipping on my green smoothie, or playing with the cows. Or I can say, this is a real challenge. And in putting these talks together, it's not only re-energized my old inner psychology professor, it's also given me a whole new way of thinking of life, a whole new way of dealing with diet. So, and the other thing is it anxiety or excitement? I worked as a therapist for 40 years, and I worked with many, many people, depressed, anxious, all of the whole gamut. And often clients would get upset with me because they would say they were anxious about something, and I would say, is that anxiety or is it excitement? Because underneath, that's the same physiological response. And so we can reframe this as, oh, I'm so anxious, or maybe I'm so excited. Imagine getting up and talking to people versus getting ready to get onto the world's biggest, what do you call those? Roller coaster, yeah. Wouldn't that feels the same, doesn't it? It's like it's the same thing. So we can reframe our own physiological responses. And if we have help from our enteric nervous system, which is saying, everything's okay, you can do this, then you can really reframe it. Journaling. There were some really interesting studies done actually in Texas where students were brought into the laboratory to write about a trauma. That's all they did. They wrote about a recent or old trauma that they'd had in their life. They never got any feedback. They never knew if anybody read it. That was it. But they were students, so there was some control over what was happening in their lives, and they could check with the health center 6 months later. And they found out that the students had written about a trauma, used the health center significantly fewer times than those students who'd just written about how to study for an exam. So, and again, it's not like deep psychotherapy, although let me tell you, psychotherapy works, since I was a therapist for a long time, just writing about it. And that comes in when I'm going to talk about a little bit later about connection with self. I think this helps you connect with self. The other thing stress can do is it helps you to reach out. It's one of the worst things you can do if you're really isolated, socially or physically isolated, is to clam up for a lot of people. And so if I'm having trouble, it helps me to reach out. So I was getting this talk ready, and I was feeling pretty stressed about it. So I sent my daughter my slides. Would you look at these slides? So it was just a simple reaching out kind of thing, which helped. And when I get to connection, you'll see how that's related as well. Okay. That's me and Fred. I'm going to stop for a minute to ask if there's any questions, because I do get blithery. So this is me and Fred at the farm. Isn't that great? Yeah. Okay, next one. And that's me and Pickles. At the farm, we taught Pickles how to sit. Actually, you did, didn't you, Kim? Yeah. And so he's the world's best pig. Now when I walk toward him with something, he just sits. He doesn't wait. So next one. Okay, and to sleep. No questions. I hope I'm not boring you. Okay. All right, so what happens when we don't get enough sleep? The uses of sleep and dreams and how food might affect that. The effect of whole food plant-based diet and some tips on how to get a good sleep. So this one is simple. It's not good to not get enough sleep. It's just not good for your health in any way whatsoever. It affects your cognitive impairment, it affects cognition, memory, moral judgment, hallucinations. When I was an undergraduate, I was a chemistry major, and at one point I had a physics exam, and so I pulled an all-nighter. And the next day I hallucinated. The exam was about diffraction gratings, and I kept hallucinating rainbows in my side vision. So I never pulled an all-nighter again. So it can actually cause that. Similar symptoms to ADHD, poor immune system, risk of diabetes, irregular heart rate. We know that getting enough sleep or not getting enough sleep is positively correlated with obesity. So getting enough sleep is really important. Next one. Oh, okay. I keep putting these in. It surprises me. Okay. So, all right. Think for a moment about your own stress and how you might reframe it. And maybe just take a few mindful breaths. Bring yourself into the present moment. Open to what's going on, whether it's the people around you. We cannot change how we feel. How we feel is how we feel. And the best way to feel things, to be healthy in terms of our emotional life, is feel what we feel. We don't need to act it out, but it's important to really feel what we feel. But what I want to really emphasize is we can change how we think. And when we change how we think about things, it affects us not only in our cognitive world, but in our physical world. So just take a moment. I like that little video there. I mean, that little graphic. When you go for a walk, are you mindful or mindful? Yeah, I always go for walks. I walk a lot. And when I walk, I don't listen to podcasts. I just walk. And so give that a try. Next one. I taught a whole class on dreams. I really love dreams and REM sleep. We know if you deprive people of REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, that is when you take people into the laboratory and you watch them sleep and their eyes start fluttering and you wake them up, they will always say they've been dreaming. Now, it turns out we do dream at other parts of the night, but that's the big time when we're dreaming. And if you take somebody into the laboratory and you stop their REM sleep every time, they're getting enough sleep, but they're not getting REM sleep, they go kind of nuts. They get a little bit crazy. Dreams are very important, as is sleep. And dreams can help us regulate our emotions. And so if you've had a particular stressful time, often that will work through in your dreams. There was an interesting study done after the Vietnam War with Vietnam War veterans who had PTSD. And they had very, very intrusive dreams of what had happened to them in Vietnam. And they let them dream and dream and dream. And what they found out is when the dreams started changing just a little bit, when the dreams got a little bit symbolic rather than actually replaying the event, then their symptoms started going down. So it can really help that way. It helps consolidate our memory. There was a wonderful study with rats where they put little electrodes in their brain. I don't approve of animal studies, but this was done. Put electrodes in their brain while they learned a maze during the day. And then they watched the rats' electrodes during the night, and the same neurons were firing. So they were rehearsing their little maze learning. And the next morning, they're better. And that's true with all of us. If we do a lot of, I would always tell my students, don't go sleepless the night before an exam. Study hard and then sleep well, because it'll help consolidate the memory. And of course, we know many examples. Anybody here ever have a weird dream? Did you ever think about how absolutely creative that is? Years ago, I had a dream that kind of changed my life. I dreamed, this was probably 30 years ago, and it ties into what I'm going to be talking about next. I had a dream that there was a pandemic, and the pandemic turned everybody into stone. And this was, I had never thought about this. It was, I called it a pandemic in my dream, and everybody was turned to stone. And so this was kind of a horrifying kind of dream. But then in the dream, it turned out that the way to keep people, or the way to bring back people from being stoned, was to give them a really, really, really deep massage. And so I thought, to really deeply touch someone helps bring us back. It enlivens us when we have that deep connection. We stop being stone people and start being real life living flesh. So enjoy your dreams. And if they're nightmares, ask them what they're trying to tell you. Okay, so I went and looked on Google. Let's move to the next one. These are really boring. Okay, anybody can look these up. This was AI on Google. You know, you want to establish a regular sleep schedule, bedtime routine. Don't drink coffee before bed unless you can. Manage your stress, get sunlight, avoid. You know, this is kind of stupid. I mean, no, but is anybody who? I mean, we all know this, right? So what's the next one? Yeah. So whole food plant-based diet. Guess what? People on plant-based diets sleep up almost an hour more a night. So just getting all of that, people on plant-based diets get better sleep quality, they have less fragmented sleep, and they sleep longer. I know on days when I hate to use these terms, I'm not so good a vegan, that is, I have white rice or something like that, I don't sleep as well. I have one of these fancy Oura rings that gives me a sleep score every night. Do I want to have the best sleep score? If I kind of compete with my ring. Do I want to have the best sleep score? Raw vegan, and don't eat before bed. That's me. There are many, many individual differences, so that might not be you, but for me, if I want to get my best sleep score, that's what I do. But the other interesting thing has to do with chronotype. Anybody here, have you heard of chronotype? A few of you. Chronotype has to do with our natural sleep schedule. And some of us have different ones, and some of us can have really different ones. I have a friend, in fact, I wrote a book with her, and her sleep schedule, she has to have it, is from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. And that's when she sleeps the best. If she goes to bed later, she still wakes up at 3. And another friend had the same thing, is that's when he sleeps. That's the best time. And I gave this talk to the Zoom group at Lifestyle Medicine, and one of the members there said that his best sleep time was 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. And so he quit his job and became a pizza deliverer so he could sleep on his sleep schedule, and he said he was happier than he'd ever been. So, and that's, my ring helped me determine I'm an early morning person, which is weird because when I was in college, I was the opposite. So those change, but go with your body. Listen to your body. If you're doing really healthful things, healthful eating, and not eating a lot of sugar, getting a lot of sugar ups and downs, then it will tell you. And make your lifestyle fit that rather than vice versa. Okay. Okay. Where am I? Are there any questions? Yeah.
So you have a ring that determines your
Yes.
time, and where do we find it?
It's an Oura ring, O-U-R-A, and it's expensive. It was what, $350, $400, but it's magic. And it'll tell you how much to exercise every day, and it'll tell you how well you sleep, and it'll tell you your resilience scores and how resilient your heart is. And it's really, especially when you're like me and you like to be in competition with your ring. I don't want my ring to win, and so it tells me I need another 50 50 calories of exercise, I'll go do it, right? Because I don't want my ring to win. So we have a pretty nice relationship, though. So, any other questions? You're very, yeah.
You know, I'm hearing mostly because I saw about the sleep, and a lot of my family has sleep apnea, and they wear the mask and stuff. And comments about that.
Well, sleep apnea has so many different causes to it, whether it's actual physiological causes or obesity. So I think people with sleep apnea have to be evaluated in a sleep study. And I know my husband has sleep apnea, and he tried a CPAP machine, and he failed. And so now we have some sort of dental appliance. And what was that guy called, a sleep dentist or something like that? There's a guy in town who's a sleep dentist, and he'll put appliances in. And sometimes it will involve surgery, but it's something to be absolutely paid attention to. My ring will tell me my oxygen concentration every night, and it'll tell me if there's sleep problems. Maybe I should be getting a commission from Aura. Anybody else? Okay. What's the next one? Oh, I did it again. Okay. Did you just pass? Oh, go back. There we go. Yeah. And so here's another way to help relieve stress. And I'm, as I said, I'm training to be a yoga teacher, and I've done yoga my whole life. This is actually my second teacher training. And in yoga, you learn about alternate nostril breathing. Have you ever heard of that? Has anybody heard of that? So what you do is you close your right nostril and inhale through your left, and then close the left and inhale through the right, and then inhale through the right and exhale through the left. That's sort of the basic of alternate nostril breathing. And it supposedly, I always learned in yoga that this was going to balance your brain hemispheres, and I thought, no, it's not. But there's actually been some EEG studies have shown that it actually does. And what they found is that breathing through the left nostril is calming. So if you're I never thought about this. Close your left nostril and exhale longer than you inhale. Probably you might put yourself to sleep. Who knows? Or breathing through the right nostril might help you with alertness. But really, if you spend time with alternate nostril breathing, it's a very calming thing. Especially if they're deep and slow breaths. So, yeah.
How much time on the alternate nostril?
Well, it's like anything. It's like any change in our life. Start small. Because if I tell you, oh, no, you need to do a half hour, you're not going to do that. But you might try a minute and see how you feel. And I think that's important with any of the lifestyle changes and that's where I'm going to get to connection, is check in with yourself. Or do 3 minutes, maybe. You would just sit there and breathe in through your left nostril and just, how are you feeling? Okay. Oh, and that's a twins, isn't it? Yeah. And Tuve, and is that Pickles in the background? Yeah, okay. All right, next one. All right. So this is a really important one. In the Living Lifestyle group, I think it says social connection, but I think connection is so much more than that. It involves social connection, being with people. Now, some of us, me included, are complete introverts. The difference between introversion and extroversion is not how nice you are. Okay? Introversion and extroversion has to do with where do you get your energy. And so introverts get energy from being alone. So if I go to a party, I may be totally social. I think people think I'm nice. And I'll go home exhausted. Whereas extroverts are the opposite. They'll go to a party and just feel wonderful, and they'll get sort of antsy when they're on their own. So there's huge individual differences here. But social connection is important to all of us, one way or another, whether it's with a lot of people or with just a few people. And then I think there's this connection with ourselves that is very, very important. And our bodies, connection with the natural world, and then connection with something very much larger than ourselves. The rabbit effect. Another study. Okay, I just can't pull myself away from academia. So here's a study on feeding and making rabbits unhealthy. Okay, so here was a study was done that they gave rabbits high saturated fats diet. And so the rabbits got unhealthy, right? Their cholesterol went up, and there was damage to their blood vessels. Rabbits are like us. And so the study was actually to study heart disease in an animal model. Again, something I don't approve of, but I can use the results. And what they found is that half the rabbits, they all got higher cholesterol, but only half the rabbits had damage to their blood vessels. And they're like, what's going on here? Why are half of them, and it was clearly half. Half of them had high cholesterol and much damage, and the other half had kind of high cholesterol but no damage. What was the difference?
Activity.
No, they're all in cages.
Male, female.
No.
Frame of mind.
Why would frame of mind be different? They're all in cages. And the rabbits in one part of the room were smarter than the other?
Socialized with people, maybe mentors.
Yeah, so here's what happened, is that the rabbits were somewhere on one group was on a high shelf, and another was on a shelf right in front of the heart, actually. And they found out that the lab assistant who'd been feeding the rabbits would feed the ones on the high shelf. That's what she could reach, right? But the ones on the shelf in front of her, she picked them up and cuddled them. That's the only difference. That's the rabbit effect. And so basically, what makes the difference? Love makes the difference, right? Okay. And this is Thanksgiving. Have you ever had a Thanksgiving like this? That was quite the spread we had for them. Yeah. So this is what we do at the farm every Thanksgiving, is we feed the turkeys. And it's the best Thanksgivings I've ever had, because we know we're not harming any animals, and they love it once we round them up. And they especially loved, I thought the one on the left side, Johnny Rose, I thought it was particularly serendipitous that he ate a whole bowl of cranberries. I thought that's revenge. That's the turkey's revenge. Okay, next one. Okay, so social connection. I'll begin with the broadest one. Social connection is important, and this is lots and lots of studies that being socially connected helps you maintain a healthy weight, helps control blood sugars, improves cancer survival. This is done, with people who've had cancer. They get into support groups. They survive longer. Decreases heart disease deaths. It decreases depression, improves PTSD, improves overall mental health. This is what social connection does. Whether it's having just good friends that you can talk to, and hopefully everyone has a very good friend in here that they can be who they are with. That's the best health. Or maybe you have a therapist that you can be who you are with and sort of let down all the guards. That when we let down our guards, we actually engage a different part of the vagus nerve, the ventral vagal. And when we engage that part of the vagus nerve, then we calm down. So social connection is very, very, very important. So I don't want to denigrate that, but I want to look at another one. Next one. So here's another way to get social connection, is get out there in the world and volunteer and be with people and have a lot of fun and also connect with the animals. So I want to spend some time beyond social connection, and I've brought them both up just a little bit. First one is connection with yourself. Are you really connected with yourself, or do you spend all your time thinking about other people, or thinking about what you're going to do next, or thinking about the future, or thinking about the past? How do you really, really connect with yourself? And that's what my mindful moments have been about, is take some time. Just connect with yourself. Don't do what the world expects you to do. what you need to do. Now, there's certain constraints that all of us have, but just to connect in, to do that gentle exercise, to do some sort of breath work, whether it's alternate nostril or just breathing this beautiful spring air that we have today, of doing some gentle yoga. And that's just gentle stretching. I'm not talking about doing headstand or downward facing dog, although those are fun. You can build yourself up to those. To take time during the day for these mindfulness practices, like when I walk, I don't do a podcast, I do what's called an awe walk. Wow. Look at what's beautiful in the world around you. Of course, in the spring, it's very, very easy. But it's also easy in the middle of winter because I love getting my waterproof shoes on and my waterproof pants and my waterproof coat and going out and getting as wet as I can. And the rain is wonderful. I spent 7 or 8 years in Arizona, in Phoenix, in college. And I wasn't in college that long, high school and college. And when I moved to Oregon, the first fall day, it was raining, and I looked out the window and I said, "Look, it's raining." And everybody thought I was nuts, but I've never lost that feeling. It's always, look, it's raining. It's beautiful. And then taking good self-care routines and whether your self-care is spending a few minutes watching YouTube videos, or whether it's breathing, or whether it's what kind of self-care? Taking a nap, sitting for a while outside, petting your cat, eating well. This is how it's going to come back together, eating well. And so that's connecting with self. Take that time. It's just like Charlie was talking about the GLP-1s, right? It comes from down here. And letting that just circulate through our whole system. And then there's spiritual connection. And we can think about spirit in many, many different ways. Some people can think about it, can use God. Other people can use nature. Whatever it works, that you feel like there is something beyond yourself. This is, so you connect with yourself, and then you can connect with the wider world, whether it's nature or whether it's spirit or a higher power. And once we do that, we begin to find meaning and purpose in life. Try the next one. Let's see. Okay, good. Phew. Okay, I forgot I put this slide in this morning. So connecting with this interconnectedness. And we begin to realize when we do this that our little separate selves are much bigger than we ever thought. This can often foster feelings of love, compassion, and understanding. And a friend of mine told me a really interesting thing the other day. He said, "It takes energy to not know what we know." And this is what happened with me, and this is the way that being whole food, plant-based, being vegan, really changed my inner life and my spiritual life more than anything, is I realized that when I became whole food, plant-based, when I wasn't eating animals anymore, that in my psyche, my whole life, I had defended against what I knew it was wrong. We know about factory farming. We know it's wrong. But because we're so caught up in culture and we're so caught up in doing what we think we should do, and then we get addicted, and then our systems are addicted, that we sort of suppress the thing that, for me it was, I could not kill a living being to eat it. I can't. What right do I have to pay someone to do that? And that came to me. And so I knew that not being vegan was not good, but the psychological language was I defended against it. And when I became vegan, everything opened up. My life opened up again, and I could really do connection. There we go. What's the next one then? Okay, all right. When I showed this to some of my friends, they said it looked like St. Francis. Thank you for that picture. Yeah. So this is what being vegan does. It helps you sleep. It helps you manage your stress in conjunction with your central nervous system. and it helps you connect with others, and it really helps you connect and really garner the sense of being connected with the world in ways that give you meaning and purpose beyond what you thought could ever be true. So, any questions? Yeah.
Where's this farm that you run?
Okay. This farm is called Welcome Home Animal Sanctuary, and it's in Cresswell. A very easy drive. If anyone wants to go down on Wednesday mornings and help me shovel shit, I'll give you a ride. Okay, that was it. Okay, so, yeah, so that's what I would think. Okay? Okay, well, I guess my time's up, so thank you very much.